What is up, YouTube, and welcome to this Punisher full season review. So if you're new to the channel, please do drop a like, smash that like if you enjoyed the Punisher Netflix show, and please do consider subscribing with notifications on so you never ever miss a video. So I'm a bit late with this, I'm sorry guys. Usually I get my videos out for these Marvel Netflix shows the day they actually air. However, I have actually had some things change at work, and unfortunately this will never happen again, which is a real shame, but whatever. And I also went to see Justice League, so that's kind of taken a lot of my time. But for you Marvel fans, for you my subscribers who are Marvel fans, I'm still here. I'm still repping Marvel, as always. We here at Superheronexus are split down the middle with DC and Marvel, and here we absolutely love the Punisher. And finally, we have got a Punisher which is true to the comics. I think that Jon Bernthal, how do you pronounce his name, is to the Punisher what Hugh Jackman is to Wolverine. No one else can ever be cast as good as Jon as the Punisher. I mean, so we pretty much pick up where we left off in Daredevil Season 2. We have Frank Castle off. He has now made a life as Paul Castiglione. I think that's how you pronounce it. Which, funny enough, his real name is Frank Castiglione in the comics. So nice little Easter egg there. We'll pop my Easter eggs kind of references throughout when I mention certain characters, etc. So he's living his life sitting on the dock or the construction yard, which we didn't get we really didn't get to see Avengers Tower. Why? I'm starting to think that perhaps the Avengers didn't really happen in this universe. It's a real shame, and funny enough, I think this might actually be the final Marvel Netflix show, as Marvel have actually ended, or starting to end, their deal with Netflix as they move towards their own sort of streaming platform, which kind of surprises me they haven't bothered really to make one to date. I mean, we've got Disney Life, but that really is simply just, you know, Disney stuff, like the animated movies, etc. So they're going to be moving towards putting everything, because they own Star Wars, they own Marvel, got Pixar, and obviously they've got all their Disney back catalogs. So I can't blame them for really doing that, but I'm not really going to sign up to another subscription service unless they carry on these unique, these original shows. But this, I have to say, throughout, this was an amazing show. It really was good. Now, some people have said that, well, it wasn't as, it was too violent. In my opinion, I don't think it was that violent enough. We got pox and little parts of Frank going absolutely loco here, but really we never got to see the full Punisher experience. And annoyingly, this felt a lot more like an origin story. This felt like we introduced him because he was actually introduced in Spider-Man in the comics, and then he went on later on to have his own solo title once he was big enough, which is pretty darn cool, to be honest, that they've kind of referenced that in this. He was introduced in Daredevil, and here he was so popular he got his own TV show. Really, they've changed his origin. Obviously, he was in Afghanistan instead of the Vietnam War, so they've kind of changed it quite a lot here. And we get the fallout of what happened in Daredevil Season 2, when they were investigating the drugs thing and why his family was actually killed. And his family was actually killed so they could be a body count to hide that Frank was involved with everything and he was killed amongst loads of other people. So it could seem completely random. So we're continuing on that story, and he's trying to get to the bottom of it. And we're introduced to Microchip, who is amazing. In this, he's just called Micro, but in the comics, he's called Microchip. And, well, he's completely different here. In this Netflix show, he actually has a full family, a full backstory. He's essentially Edward Snowden, which is really cool, I think. But in the comics, he is simply just an ally, and later on he becomes an enemy of the Punisher, which is pretty cool, which I thought was being teased when Frank actually accidentally kisses his wife. So I thought they were going to move in that direction, but they didn't. And we get the full battle van in this as well. So we get the Punisher battle van, which is pretty awesome. I love the fact that they've added that in. Now, the story, I have to say, was a bit convoluted. It might be just me, but I had a hard time keeping up with the whole sort of conspiracy and things like that. And I had to go back and rewind quite a lot to think, oh, did I understand this fully? And it is really a bit confusing, but that's probably just me watching an entire kind of TV show in a day. That might be why. But it was good. The underlying storyline was pretty cool. The whole drugs thing, I like how it fit in with the Madame Gao storyline as well. That these drugs were being then obviously sold on to the Hand and things like that. So that's really cool. Daredevil sort of things there. And, well, we got Agent Orange, who is William Rollins, who was running this entire thing. And, well, Frank absolutely unleashes on him because he was kind of being really disrespectful, which leads him to get that milky eye. And in the comic books, this guy actually has an eye patch, and then he later has his eye taken out. So nice little kind of reference towards that. And as further to people being changed, the leader of the group, the kind of like the veteran self-help group, he was actually a bit of a nasty character in the comic books as well, who was a bad guy and the Punisher also took down. But Lewis, the guy who was involved in the subplot about the gun rights thing, I didn't really, I didn't like that subplot. I didn't really think it worked with everything. I kind of feel that after Defenders, these Netflix shows should still just be 9 episodes long. The problem is it just kind of dragged out a bit. Not as much as Luke Cage or Iron Fist, but this one did drag out quite a lot, I think, which was a real shame. And this Lewis guy, he wasn't really in the comics books at all either, which was weird. And talking of Easter eggs, just quickly, there wasn't that many. There really wasn't that many Easter eggs, which is a real shame. So I'm not going to do a separate Easter eggs video in this. Now, really, it all comes down to Billy Russo versus Frank Castle, the Punisher. And it led throughout this story being unraveled and things like that. And we had Anvil, which is actually... Anvil was actually a villain in the comics. He's actually like a supervillain, which is weird. So I would have liked to see Billy Russo actually involved with Anvil, but this guy is running, this supervillain is running this paramilitary organization, which I wanted to learn more about. I wanted to learn more about Anvil, and I think if they got rid of this Lewis kind of subplot, well, it would have been a lot better. And maybe season 2 could have followed on and had this subplot as well. I mean, that could have been the whole plot of the thing. We could have had a domestic terrorist group, which would have been really, really interesting. And the whole thing with Karen Page, I thought was really awesome. I really did like that kind of, that bit going on, but it really did detract from the main story, and I think it would have been a lot better if the subplot was actually, you know, fleshed out just a tad more, and it felt rushed in this, and it felt just, you know, really a bit pointless to be added into this, and it could have really done without it. But Ben Barnes as Billy Russo, aka Jigsaw in the comics, was amazing. And in the comics, he was a mob boss, or sorry, a mob actual kind of hitman, who later on was beaten up by the Punisher. He had glass all strewn over his face, which we saw at the end on the carousel, which was what we saw where his family were murdered and what we originally saw in the flashbacks in Daredevil Season 2. So really, really awesome how they've worked that out. And he was named the Butte as an assassin to allude to his good looks, which the Homeland Security agent absolutely loved. And I felt the sex scene a bit gratuitous there, I'm afraid. Really, I don't know why they lingered on those two having sex. I'm not really sure why we had that. I wasn't feeling that. Wasn't feeling that at all. The rest of this, I thought the whole of the series was really, really good, and I would highly recommend going checking it out. But I was a bit disappointed there wasn't too much fan service in this, which was a shame. There wasn't many connections or things like that, or major characters introduced, other than really Billy Russo Jigsaw, who I think is going to be the villain of Season 2. I think moving forward, he will be the villain of Season 2, if we get a Season 2, which I really hope we do. And I have to say, the best parts of this were the team-ups and the workings out of Micro and Frank, who I hope they continue on. I hope Micro kind of feeds Punisher information later on, and I really do hope that carries on because both of these worked really well. I love the storyline of Micro having to see his family from afar, and yeah, just a really, really good series. It just felt like I don't know, Designated Survivor kind of thing, or 24. It felt a lot like that as opposed to a superhero TV show or anything like that. And it was really, really grounded and just absolutely stunning. So I highly recommend going and checking this out. I would really, or if you haven't seen it and have been completely spoiled for you, well, go and watch it. It is absolutely amazing. It's just stunning. However, that is it for this video. Please do drop a like. Please do subscribe. And I'll see you soon. Goodbye.